The damp chill of the Scottish Highlands crept into the stone walls of Dunfermline Abbey, where a young girl named Edith knelt before an ancient altar. Her lips moved in prayer, her hands clasped tightly, but her mind was far from the sacred words. Edith, the future Matilda of Scotland, was already an enigma, a child of royal blood whose destiny would intertwine with the fates of kingdoms. Born in 1080, Edith was the daughter of Malcolm III of Scotland and St. Margaret of Wessex. Her lineage alone was remarkable. Malcolm, a fierce and pragmatic king, had forged alliances through strength and conquest, while Margaret, an exiled Anglo-Saxon princess, brought refinement, piety, and a deep sense of duty to the Scottish court. Their union was both a love story and a strategic alliance, a combination of fire and ice that would define Edith's early years. Edith's childhood was a tapestry of contrasts. On one hand, there was the raw, untamed beauty of Scotland, a land of mist-covered hills and roaring rivers. Her father's court at Dunfermline was a place of rough-hewn grandeur, where warriors and nobles gathered to discuss politics and war. Here, Edith learned the value of strength and resilience. She listened intently as her father spoke of battles won and territories secured, his booming voice filling the great hall. On the other hand, there was the serene, disciplined life within the abbey. Margaret, deeply religious and mindful of her children's futures, ensured that Edith and her siblings were raised with a firm grounding in faith and education. The nuns at Dunfermline taught Edith to read and write in Latin, a rare skill for a girl of her time. She was exposed to scripture, classical texts, and the teachings of the church, which shaped her worldview. Even as a child, she displayed an uncanny ability to reconcile the competing influences of her parents' worlds, a skill that would serve her well in later life. But Edith's idyllic early years were not to last. The Norman conquest of England in 1066 had set off a chain of events that would ripple through her family. Margaret, an Anglo-Saxon princess, had fled England after the fall of her brother Harold Godwin's son at the Battle of Hastings. Though she found refuge and love in Scotland, her ties to the English throne made her family a target. In 1093, tragedy struck. Malcolm was ambushed and killed during a skirmish with the English at Alnwick, and Margaret, already ill, succumbed to her grief shortly afterward. Edith, now an orphan, found her world upended. After her parents' deaths, Edith and her siblings were placed under the care of the abbey's nuns. It was here, amid the cloistered halls of Dunfermline, that Edith began to forge her own identity. She took comfort in prayer and study, but she also harbored a quiet determination to rise above her circumstances. She refused to be defined by tragedy. Instead, she immersed herself in the world of ideas, drawing inspiration from the strong women in her life, her mother, the nuns, and even the female saints whose stories she read in the abbey's manuscripts. As Edith grew older, her beauty and intelligence became the subject of admiration. Her golden hair, piercing blue eyes, and graceful demeanor were matched by a sharp wit and a commanding presence. By the time she reached her teens, it was clear that she was destined for more than a life of quiet devotion. Word of her virtues spread beyond the abbey, reaching the ears of nobles and kings alike. Among those who took notice was Henry, the youngest son of William the Conqueror. Henry was an ambitious and calculating man, driven by a desire to consolidate his power and secure his place in history. In 1100, after the sudden death of his brother William II, Henry seized the English throne, but his claim to the crown was precarious. He faced opposition from his elder brother Robert, as well as from the Anglo-Saxon nobility, who still harbored resentment toward their Norman overlords. Henry needed a queen who could help him bridge these divides, a woman of royal blood, respected by both Normans and Saxons. Edith, with her dual heritage and impeccable reputation, was the perfect choice. The prospect of marriage to Henry was met with mixed emotions by Edith. She understood the political significance of the union, but she also knew that it would mean leaving behind the life she had built at the abbey. she would have to navigate the treacherous waters of the English court, where alliances were fragile and betrayal was commonplace. Yet Edith, ever pragmatic, accepted her fate. She recognized that her marriage to Henry was not just a personal union but a chance to shape the destiny of two nations. Before the wedding could take place, there was one significant obstacle to overcome: Edith's name and her association with the monastic life. Many questioned whether she was truly fit to be queen. To silence these doubts, Edith was required to adopt a new name, Matilda, a name steeped in Norman tradition. The change was symbolic, marking her transition from a Scottish princess to an English queen. It was also a testament to her adaptability, a quality that would define her reign. The wedding of Henry and Matilda in November 1100 was a grand affair, attended by nobles, clergy, and dignitaries from across England and beyond. The union was celebrated as a symbol of reconciliation, bringing together the Norman and Anglo-Saxon traditions that had long been at odds. For Matilda, the ceremony marked the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one that would test her strength, intelligence, and resilience in ways she could not yet imagine. As queen, Matilda quickly proved herself to be more than a mere consort. She took an active role in the governance of the kingdom, offering counsel to Henry and mediating disputes with the grace and authority of a seasoned diplomat. She became a patroness of the arts, commissioning works of literature and architecture that reflected her refined tastes and her commitment to the cultural enrichment of the realm. She also worked tirelessly to support the church, using her influence to promote education and reform. But Matilda's greatest contribution to Henry's reign was her ability to navigate the complex web of alliances and rivalries that defined medieval politics. Her marriage to Henry had given her a unique perspective, allowing her to act as a bridge between the Norman and Anglo-Saxon factions. She used her position to advocate for policies that promoted unity and stability, earning the respect of nobles and commoners alike. In many ways, she was the glue that held Henry's kingdom together. Despite her successes, Matilda's life was not without challenges. The English court was a place of intrigue and deception, where loyalty was often fleeting. Henry himself was known for his infidelities, and Matilda had to endure the whispers and rumors that accompanied life as the wife of a powerful king. Yet she remained steadfast, focusing on her duties as queen and mother. Her resilience in the face of adversity was a testament to her character, earning her the admiration of her contemporaries and securing her place in history. By the time of her death in 1118, Matilda had left an indelible mark on England. She had not only helped to secure Henry's reign, but also laid the groundwork for the future success of the dynasty. Her legacy lived on through her children, particularly her daughter Matilda, who would go on to play a pivotal role in the history of England. Matilda of Scotland's story is one of triumph over adversity, a testament to the power of intelligence, resilience, and determination. She was a woman ahead of her time, a queen who understood the complexities of power and used her position to make a lasting impact. Her life serves as a reminder that history is often shaped not just by kings and battles, but by the quiet strength of those who stand beside them. The sun rose over Westminster, its golden rays illuminating the newly united court of Henry I, beneath the grandeur of the freshly adorned halls, where Norman banners hung beside Anglo-Saxon emblems. Matilda of Scotland began her work as queen. The union between Matilda and Henry was not simply a marriage, it was a calculated political maneuver, a symbol of reconciliation between the warring factions of England. Yet for Matilda, this was no mere role to play. It was an opportunity to shape a kingdom, to heal a fractured land, and to stand as an equal beside one of the most ambitious rulers of the age. Matilda's early days as queen were consumed by the ceremonial duties expected of her, hosting feasts, granting audiences to nobles, and overseeing the domestic affairs of the court. But beneath the surface, she quickly established herself as a woman of influence and insight. While many queens of her time were relegated to the background, Matilda was determined to be a partner in governance. Henry, known for his pragmatism, recognized her capabilities and sought her counsel on matters of state. Their partnership was one of mutual respect, a dynamic that would define the early years of his reign. Henry's position as king, however, was far from secure. His ascent to the throne had been swift and opportunistic, coming in the wake of his brother William II's sudden death in a hunting accident, an event that many suspected was more than a mere misfortune. Henry faced immediate opposition from his elder brother Robert, Duke of Normandy, who claimed the throne as his own. The threat of civil war loomed large, and the kingdom teetered on the brink of chaos. Matilda, with her sharp intellect and political acumen, played a crucial role in stabilizing the kingdom during this turbulent period. She recognized that Henry's hold on power depended not only on military strength but also on the support of the church and the loyalty of his barons. Drawing on the lessons of her upbringing, she worked tirelessly to cultivate alliances and build bridges between rival factions. One of Matilda's first acts as queen was to strengthen ties with the church. She was a devout woman, deeply influenced by her mother's piety, and she understood the importance of aligning Henry's reign with the moral authority of the clergy. She established close relationships with influential bishops and abbots, using her charm and diplomacy to win their favor. Her efforts bore fruit when Anselm, the Archbishop of Canterbury, pledged his support to Henry, effectively legitimizing his rule in the eyes of the church. Matilda's role in securing ecclesiastical backing was not limited to diplomacy. She also became a patroness of religious institutions, founding monasteries and endowing churches throughout the kingdom. Her generosity and devotion earned her a reputation as a queen who cared deeply for the spiritual welfare of her people. These actions not only reinforced Henry's legitimacy but also helped to unify the kingdom under a shared sense of faith and purpose. While Matilda worked to solidify the church's support, she also turned her attention to the nobility. The Norman aristocracy, still wary of Henry's rapid rise to power, needed reassurance that their interests would be protected. At the same time, the Anglo-Saxon lords, marginalized since the Norman conquest, sought a voice in the new regime. Matilda, with her unique heritage, was perfectly positioned to navigate these competing demands. She used her status as a descendant of Alfred the Great to appeal to the Anglo-Saxon nobility, reminding them that she shared their blood and their history. Her eloquence and grace won over many who had initially been skeptical of Henry's rule. Meanwhile, she leveraged her marriage to Henry to reassure the Normans that their privileges would be preserved. Her ability to speak both Anglo-Saxon and Norman French allowed her to act as a mediator, bridging the cultural and linguistic divide that had plagued the kingdom since 1066. Matilda's efforts were instrumental in quelling dissent and fostering a sense of unity. Her presence at court became a symbol of stability, and her influence on Henry's policies was evident. Together, they implemented reforms aimed at consolidating royal authority and curbing the power of rebellious barons. These reforms included the strengthening of the royal treasury, the establishment of a centralized legal system, and the imposition of stricter controls on feudal obligations. Despite her political successes, Matilda's life at court was far from idyllic. The English court was a hotbed of intrigue, where rival factions vied for power and influence. Matilda had to navigate a labyrinth of alliances and betrayals, often relying on her wit and intuition to stay ahead of her enemies. She also faced personal challenges, including the rumors of infidelity that surrounded Henry, known for his numerous mistresses and illegitimate children. Henry's dalliances were a source of humiliation for Matilda, yet she bore these indignities with dignity, focusing on her responsibilities as queen and mother. The birth of Matilda and Henry's children was a pivotal moment in their reign. Their first son, William Adelin, was seen as the future of the dynasty, a unifying figure who embodied the hopes of both the Norman and Anglo-Saxon peoples. Matilda was deeply devoted to her children, ensuring that they received the best education and upbringing possible. She took a particular interest in her daughter, also named Matilda, who would later become a central figure in the succession crisis that followed Henry's death. As Matilda balanced the demands of motherhood and queenship, she continued to expand her influence. She became a patroness of the arts and a supporter of intellectual pursuits, attracting scholars and artists to the court. Her contributions to the cultural life of England were significant, and she played a key role in fostering a sense of national identity. Under her guidance, the court became a center of learning and refinement, reflecting her vision of a kingdom that was not only strong but also enlightened. The turning point in Matilda's story came in 1106, when Henry launched a military campaign to seize control of Normandy from his brother Robert. The conflict, known as the Battle of Tinchebray, was a decisive moment in Henry's reign. Matilda, though not present on the battlefield, was deeply involved in the political and logistical preparations for the campaign. Her efforts to secure the loyalty of key nobles and ensure the stability of the kingdom during Henry's absence were critical to the success of the endeavor. When Henry emerged victorious at Tinchebray, Matilda's role in the triumph was widely acknowledged. Her diplomatic skills, her ability to inspire loyalty, and her unwavering support for her husband had all contributed to the outcome. The victory solidified Henry's position as king and marked the beginning of a period of relative stability for the kingdom. For Matilda, the years following Tinchebray were a time of reflection and consolidation. She continued to support Henry's reign, acting as his trusted advisor and confidant. Her influence extended beyond the court, shaping the social and cultural fabric of England in profound ways. Yet she remained acutely aware of the fragility of power and the constant threat of upheaval. As the end of her life approached, Matilda could look back on her achievements with pride. She had navigated the challenges of queenship with grace and intelligence, leaving a legacy that would endure long after her death. Her contributions to Henry's reign were immeasurable, and her role in shaping the future of England was undeniable. The halls of the English court in the years following the Battle of Tinchebray were vibrant with celebration and cautious optimism. Henry I's decisive victory over his brother Robert had solidified his claim to the English throne and the Duchy of Normandy. But it was Matilda of Scotland, his queen, who had quietly ensured that the crown sat securely on his head. Yet the story of her influence did not end there. As the years wore on, Matilda's responsibilities deepened. She was no longer just the queen who had brought peace to a divided kingdom. She became its enduring heart and its silent guardian. By the early 1110s, Matilda had fully embraced her role as the mother of England. Her son, William Adelin, was the apple of her eye and the hope of the Anglo-Norman dynasty. His education was of paramount importance, and Matilda took personal interest in ensuring that he was groomed for kingship. She oversaw his studies, carefully selecting tutors who would teach him not only the art of governance, but also the virtues of diplomacy and justice, qualities she herself had embodied throughout her life. But it was not just William who occupied Matilda's thoughts. Her daughter, also named Matilda, held a special place in her heart. Young Matilda was a reflection of her mother, sharp-witted, independent, and unyielding. Recognizing her daughter's potential, Matilda began laying the groundwork for a future where the younger Matilda could wield influence on a grand scale. It was a revolutionary idea in a time when women were rarely granted power, and it spoke volumes about Matilda of Scotland's vision and determination. As her children grew, Matilda turned her attention to the broader needs of the kingdom. The peace that she and Henry had worked so hard to achieve was fragile, threatened by lingering discontent among the nobility and sporadic unrest in the countryside. Matilda knew that a unified and stable realm required more than military victories and political alliances. It needed the trust and loyalty of its people. To that end, she embarked on a campaign of outreach, traveling across the kingdom to meet with subjects from all walks of life. Wherever she went, Matilda brought with her a sense of compassion and fairness. She listened to the grievances of peasants, addressed the concerns of merchants, and offered guidance to local leaders. Her visits to towns and villages were often accompanied by acts of charity, distributing food, clothing, and money to those in need. These gestures, though small in the grand scheme of things, endeared her to the people and solidified her reputation as a queen who truly cared for her subjects. Matilda's connection to the church remained a cornerstone of her influence. She continued to act as a patroness of religious institutions, funding the construction of abbeys and churches throughout the kingdom. One of her most ambitious projects was the establishment of the Abbey of the Holy Trinity in Aldgate, London. The abbey not only served as a center of worship, but also as a symbol of the Queen's dedication to the spiritual well-being of her people. This construction was a massive undertaking, requiring resources, labor, and careful planning, a task that Matilda approached with the same diligence she brought to all her endeavors. The Queen's relationship with the church extended beyond patronage. She frequently corresponded with prominent ecclesiastical figures, engaging in theological debates and seeking their counsel on matters of state. Her friendship with Anselm, the Archbishop of Canterbury, was particularly significant. Anselm, a towering figure in the church, admired Matilda's intellect and piety, and their mutual respect allowed them to work together on several key initiatives, including the promotion of clerical reform and the resolution of disputes between the crown and the church. Yet, even as Matilda dedicated herself to the betterment of her kingdom, her life was not without personal struggles. The rumors of Henry's infidelities persisted, and the king's growing number of illegitimate children was a source of embarrassment for the Queen. Matilda, however, refused to let these challenges define her. She maintained her composure, focusing on her duties and continuing to serve as a stabilizing force within the court. One of the most challenging moments of Matilda's queenship came in 1113, when tensions with Wales erupted into violence. The Welsh princes, long resentful of Norman rule, launched a series of uprisings against Henry's forces. While Henry led his army to suppress the rebellion, Matilda took on the role of regent, managing the affairs of the kingdom in his absence. It was a daunting task, but one that Matilda handled with remarkable skill. During this time, she convened councils of advisors, made crucial decisions regarding the allocation of resources, and worked tirelessly to maintain order in the realm. Her ability to command respect and inspire confidence among the nobility was evident, and her efforts ensured that the kingdom remained stable despite the external threat. When Henry returned victorious from Wales, he publicly acknowledged Matilda's contributions, praising her leadership and expressing his gratitude for her unwavering support. Matilda's role as regent marked a turning point in her queenship. It was clear to all who witnessed her performance that she was not merely a figurehead but a true partner in governance. Her influence extended beyond the domestic sphere, shaping policies and decisions that would have lasting implications for the kingdom. Henry, ever pragmatic, recognized the value of her counsel and began to rely on her more heavily in matters of state. The years that followed were among the most prosperous of Henry's reign, and much of that prosperity could be attributed to Matilda's efforts. She continued to champion reforms that strengthened the monarchy, streamlined the administration of justice, and improved the lives of ordinary people. Her focus on education, infrastructure, and social welfare laid the foundation for a more unified and stable England. Yet, even in times of peace, Matilda remained vigilant. She understood that the true test of a ruler's legacy lay not in the present but in the future. Her thoughts often turned to her children and the challenges they would face as heirs to the throne. She worked tirelessly to prepare them for the responsibilities that lay ahead, instilling in them the values of wisdom, courage, and compassion. As Matilda approached the twilight of her life, her health began to decline. The years of relentless service had taken their toll, and the burdens of queenship weighed heavily on her. Yet she refused to let her failing strength diminish her resolve. She continued to fulfill her duties with grace and determination, knowing that her work was far from finished. By the time of her death in 1118, Matilda had become one of the most beloved queens in English history. Her legacy was not only one of diplomacy and governance, but also of compassion and resilience. She had bridged the divide between Norman and Anglo-Saxon, earning the respect of nobles and commoners alike. Her contributions to the kingdom were profound, and her influence on Henry's reign was undeniable. The queen, who had once been a young girl kneeling in the halls of Dunfermline Abbey, had become a symbol of unity and strength. Her life was a testament to the power of intelligence, perseverance, and love, a legacy that would endure long after her passing. As the sun dipped lower on the horizon of Matilda of Scotland's life, her legacy as a queen and as a mother became more complex, more entwined with the uncertain future of Henry I's reign. By 1118, Henry's consolidation of power was nearly complete. England and Normandy were united under his control, and the Anglo-Norman kingdom was more stable than it had been in decades. Yet beneath the surface of peace, shadows lingered, shadows that Matilda, with her keen political instincts, could sense but not dispel entirely. The world that Matilda had helped to build was one of compromise and balance, but it remained precarious. Henry's position as king had depended for years on a delicate coalition of Norman lords, Anglo-Saxon nobles, and the clergy. It was Matilda who had been the binding force, quietly mending fractures and ensuring that the disparate factions worked together under Henry's rule. But as her health waned, so too did her ability to act as a stabilizing presence. By this time, Matilda's children were no longer the infants she had once cradled in her arms. Her son William Adelin, now a young man, was the pride of the Anglo-Norman court, handsome, intelligent, and poised to inherit the throne. William represented the hope of continuity for Henry's dynasty. Matilda had poured her heart and soul into his education, ensuring that he was not only a capable leader but also a unifying figure for the realm. She believed that William could embody the virtues of both the Norman conquerors and the Anglo-Saxon heritage she so cherished. But the Queen's hopes for William were not without challenges. The young prince was ambitious and self-assured, traits that sometimes veered into arrogance. Matilda, ever the mediator, worked to temper his impulsiveness, reminding him of the weight of the crown he was destined to wear. She often spoke to him of duty and sacrifice, drawing from her own life as an example. Power, she once told him, is not a gift to be wielded at will. It is a burden, carried for the sake of others. Meanwhile, her daughter, the younger Matilda, had grown into a formidable woman in her own right, married to Henry V, the Holy Roman Emperor. Young Matilda had risen to prominence on the European stage. Her marriage was a triumph of diplomacy, orchestrated in large part by her mother, who had seen in it an opportunity to strengthen ties with the continent and secure England's position within the broader political landscape. Though she lived far from the English court, young Matilda remained deeply connected to her mother, often exchanging letters filled with both personal reflections and discussions of politics. For Queen Matilda, her children were the embodiment of her legacy, the living proof of her life's work. Yet she knew all too well that the future was fraught with uncertainty. The alliances she had forged, the peace she had maintained, and the unity she had cultivated, all of it depended on the continuation of her dynasty. And as her health continued to decline, the Queen began to prepare for the inevitable. In the final months of her life, Matilda withdrew from the court, retreating to a monastery where she could find solace in prayer and reflection. It was a return to the spiritual roots of her childhood, a time to seek peace after years of relentless service to her kingdom. Yet even in her seclusion, she remained deeply engaged in the affairs of state, corresponding with Henry and offering her counsel until the very end. Her death in May 1118 was a profound loss for England. The court mourned her passing with a sense of genuine grief, recognizing that they had lost not just a queen but a symbol of unity and compassion. For Henry, the loss was deeply personal. Though their marriage had been forged in the fires of political necessity, it had grown into a partnership of mutual respect and trust. Without Matilda, Henry faced the daunting task of maintaining the stability of his realm alone. The aftermath of Matilda's death revealed the extent of her influence. Without her mediating presence, tensions began to rise within the court. The Norman lords, who had long respected Matilda's wisdom and fairness, grew restless under Henry's increasingly authoritarian rule. The Anglo-Saxon nobility, who had seen in Matilda a connection to their own heritage, felt a sense of alienation. Even the clergy, who had been among Matilda's staunchest allies, began to question the direction of the kingdom. For William Adelin, the death of his mother marked a turning point. He inherited her sense of duty but struggled to live up to her example. As the heir apparent, William was thrust into a position of immense responsibility, and his every action was scrutinized by a court still grieving the loss of its queen. Matilda's absence was keenly felt, not only in the decisions of state but also in the personal lives of those she had touched. In the years that followed, the kingdom faced a series of challenges that tested the foundations Matilda had worked so hard to build. The most devastating of these came in 1120, when the White Ship disaster claimed the life of William Adelin and much of the Anglo-Norman nobility. The tragedy plunged Henry's reign into chaos, sparking a succession crisis that would ultimately lead to decades of civil war. Matilda of Scotland did not live to see the full consequences of these events, but her legacy endured. The values she had instilled in her children, the alliances she had forged, and the reforms she had championed all left a lasting imprint on the kingdom. Her daughter, the younger Matilda, would go on to play a pivotal role in the history of England, fighting to claim her father's throne and continuing the legacy of strength and determination that her mother had exemplified. In the end, Matilda's life was a testament to the power of quiet resilience. She had bridged the divide between Norman and Anglo-Saxon, transforming a fractured kingdom into a more unified and prosperous realm. Her contributions were not always visible, but they were deeply felt, shaping the course of English history in ways that would reverberate for generations. The death of Matilda of Scotland in May 1118 marked the end of an extraordinary life, but her influence lingered, etched into the very fabric of Henry I's reign and the fate of the English throne. She had been more than a queen. She was a symbol of unity, peacemaker, a diplomat, and a mother who poured every ounce of herself into shaping the future of the Anglo-Norman kingdom. Yet, as time moved forward, the delicate balance she had maintained began to falter, unraveling into a succession of tragedies, conflicts, and legacies that would define the coming decades. Henry I was a capable and often ruthless ruler, but the loss of his wife shook the foundation of his reign. Without Matilda's steadying hand, the court grew colder, more transactional. Her ability to navigate the intricate relationships between the Norman and Anglo-Saxon factions had been a crucial element in holding the kingdom together. Henry, though pragmatic, lacked her grace in diplomacy and her genuine connection to the people, where Matilda had been able to inspire loyalty through kindness and fairness. Henry leaned increasingly on force and intimidation, creating cracks in the fragile unity they had built together. The Queen's absence was perhaps felt most profoundly in her son, William Adelin. Matilda had devoted herself to preparing William for his role as king, ensuring he was educated, disciplined, and equipped with the qualities of leadership and compassion that she believed were essential to ruling. William, while ambitious and confident, was young and untested, without his mother's guidance. He found himself struggling to live up to the expectations placed upon him as the sole legitimate heir to the throne. In 1120, the tragedy that would forever haunt Henry's reign unfolded. The White Ship disaster, a calamity of hubris and recklessness, claimed the lives of nearly everyone aboard, including William. The ship, a vessel filled with the kingdom's future, its young nobles and heirs, had been a scene of revelry and celebration before it struck a rock and capsized in the icy waters of the English Channel. William's death was a catastrophic blow to the stability of the Anglo-Norman dynasty. For Henry, it was not only a personal loss but also a political disaster of unparalleled proportions. With no surviving legitimate male heir, the question of succession, a question Matilda had worked so hard to secure, was thrown into chaos. The grief that consumed Henry in the wake of William's death was palpable. But grief soon gave way to desperation. The king, determined to ensure the continuation of his line, took the unprecedented step of naming his daughter, Matilda, as his heir. It was a bold and controversial move, one that defied the norms of medieval succession. Women, no matter how capable, were rarely entrusted with the crown. Yet Henry's choice was rooted in practicality. The younger Matilda, who had been married to the Holy Roman Emperor Henry V and carried the title of Empress, was a formidable woman in her own right. She possessed her mother's intelligence and resolve, and her father believed she could uphold the legacy of the Anglo-Norman kingdom. But Henry's decision was met with resistance. The barons, many of whom had begrudgingly accepted Matilda of Scotland as queen due to her ability to unify the realm, balked at the idea of a female ruler. The years following Henry's declaration were marked by simmering tensions and uneasy alliances. Even as he forced his nobles to swear fealty to Matilda, it was clear that his daughter's path to the throne would be fraught with obstacles. Matilda of Scotland's legacy lived on through her daughter, whose strength and determination mirrored that of her mother. After the death of the Holy Roman Emperor, the younger Matilda returned to her father's court, where she prepared for the challenges that lay ahead. Her marriage to Geoffrey Plantagenet of Anjou was arranged to secure powerful allies. Though it was far from a love match, the union produced children, including Henry, who would later become Henry II of England and play a pivotal role in shaping the Plantagenet dynasty. When Henry I died in 1135, the tenuous peace that had defined his reign crumbled into chaos. Despite his wishes and the oaths sworn by his barons, Matilda's claim to the throne was challenged by her cousin Stephen of Blois, who seized the crown and declared himself king. The result was a civil war that plunged England into a period of turmoil known as the Anarchy. For nearly 2 decades, the country was torn apart by battles, shifting allegiances, and the competing claims of Matilda and Stephen. Throughout this conflict, the elder Matilda's legacy served as a guiding force for her daughter. The lessons of resilience, diplomacy, and strategic thinking that Matilda of Scotland had instilled in her children were on full display as the younger Matilda fought tirelessly to assert her right to rule. Though she never succeeded in claiming the throne outright, her efforts paved the way for her son, Henry, to ascend as king and restore stability to the kingdom. In many ways, the story of Matilda of Scotland is one of quiet but profound influence. She did not wield a sword or lead armies into battle, yet her impact on the history of England was immense. Her role as a queen was defined not by grand gestures but by the strength of her character, the depth of her intellect, and her unwavering commitment to the welfare of her people. She was a bridge between worlds, a unifier in a time of division, and a mother whose sacrifices ensured the continuation of a dynasty. Even as the years passed and the memory of her life faded from the immediate consciousness of the realm, Matilda's contributions endured. The reforms she championed, the alliances she forged, and the legacy she left through her children shaped the course of English history. Her story is a testament to the power of resilience and the enduring impact of a life devoted to the service of others. In the end, Matilda of Scotland's life was a reflection of the very best qualities of leadership, wisdom, compassion, and an unyielding determination to do what was right. Even in the face of adversity, she was a queen whose legacy transcended her time, leaving an indelible mark on a kingdom that would remember her not only as a wife and mother, but as a true architect of unity and hope.